box of the blender, and the other to do the skip. As you can see, by this point, the one coconut method already became the standard. The very next day, Tobo managed to get a 120.08. So within just a couple of days of GBS being found, the record had almost been dropped down to a sub 120 time. Samu and Tobo were the only runners who could realistically get a sub 120 at this point, so it was only a matter of who'd be first to get it. Well, 1 month later, Tobo finally got the first sub 120 in SMS any percent, but he didn't just get it by a little bit. His time was actually a 1:19:34, completely smashing his previous record by over 30 seconds. This run was an extremely solid run with the strats that were known at the time, plus the addition of GBS. A great surge of popularity for running SMS came directly from the discovery of GBS, so it makes it all the more insane that the 1:19:34 stood for over 5 months without being contested. This is perhaps when Tobo, already being a dominant player, was at his most dominant. A few weeks prior to performing this legendary run, Tobo delivered this tweet that states, "Tobo the WR hug," and at the time, this tweet really couldn't have been more true. Shortly after this record, Samurai Man decided to take a brief break from playing SMS, and the other top runners would need to seriously grind if they could even hope to get the world record. Over the upcoming summer months, several runners were improving their skills and closing the gap between themselves and the world record. Previously, I mentioned how Honey Skip was considered to not be viable for any percent speedruns, but Stelzig went on to develop the first reasonable setup for a run. By aligning Mario's forward position to where his shadow is first visible, standing in a specific spot, and ground pounding at the very end of a neutral hover, you can buffer a diagonal sidestep into the cutscene trigger and hopefully die on the exact same frame that you enter it. Stelzig, a competitive melee player and SMS speedrunner from Denmark, had a plan to eventually defeat Tobo with the help of his Honey Skip setup, which saved roughly 10 to 12 seconds if performed quickly. Stelzig kept grinding away at Sunshine over the summer of 2014, and was excelling in various categories. When it started to dawn on him that he had the potential to take the most prestigious record in SMS, he shifted his focus entirely to any percent toward the end of July.
1:20:01.
Stelzig would sometimes like to grind offline attempts so that he could watch videos or streams during runs to take his mind off the pressure. On August 1st, Stelzig uploaded an extremely heartbreaking video that showcases an offline world record pace run that died on the Bowser fight. Unfortunately for Stelzig, he just couldn't quite handle the pressure. Chokes of this magnitude can psychologically be tough to overcome. As the month of August went on, Stelzig couldn't even manage to get a 1:19, let alone world record, despite proving beyond a reasonable doubt that he could do it.
What?
Well, there is a good ending to this story, as Stelzig's hard work did pay off. He achieved a world record time of 1:19:24 on August 25th. He finally overcame his mental block, and for the first time since late 2012, someone other than Samurai Man and Tobo, and Paperorio, held the any percent record. About a week before Stelzig took the record, Samurai Man started doing some SMS any percent runs just to see how he would do, but wasn't entirely sure if he would come back to serious grinding or not. He actually managed to get a 1:19:36, just 2 seconds off Tobo's former record, 4 days before Stelzig's 1:19:24.
Well, damn.
In the latter half of 2013, Samurai Man and Stelzig became European rivals over the 120 shines record, which is essentially the 100% category for SMS. Viewers were excited to see these two trade the record back and forth, using many Zig Frogs or Samu Caporais to show their support. This rivalry transferred over to any percent when Stelzig fully established himself as a threat with his world record time. Autumn of 2014 came around, and Samurai Man was hard set on going for not just world record, but the first ever 1:18. After about a month of grinding, Samu finally bested Stelzig's time by about 4 seconds.
Oh my god.
Samu still didn't use Honey Skip at this point, so he even had a 10-second deficit to account for. So guess what happened just as Samu had begun to take in the excitement of once again being number one? That's right, Tobo had been grinding any percent attempts this whole time, but coincidentally, he achieved a 1:19.08 merely a day after Samu got world record. Not only was this a large improvement to the record, but in addition to not using honey skip, this run also didn't have Ramel cycle. Tobo's record was truly daunting, as some of the strategies that were used seemed so crazy. This would mark the beginning of the journey to 118 for all the top runners. Many American SMS speedrunners were racing any percent regularly, sometimes on a nightly basis over the next dozen months or so following the discovery of GBS. When racing was extremely popular, there was no denying that the US had a lot of solid players, but no one was really a world record contender. As fate would have it, one particular American was on track to break this mold. I will just let the following clip introduce him.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
This is Capelon, a speedrunner from Utah. He began running SMS during the latter half of 2013, but the incredibly active community that arose during 2014 is what really motivated him to become a top-tier player. Capelon was very serious about the grind, and was building up consistency quickly. He would often win any percent races amongst the other high-level SMS runners, and this video from Q_QQQ2 proves it. Everyone knew that 118 was realistic after Tobo's 1:19.08 happened, and Capelon was dead set on being the first one to achieve it.
Fast boat hype always gets a fast boat in this run. Third place!
2014 was coming to an end, and it seemed that one of the top runners was destined to get the first 118 any day now. While on January 14th, 2015, Capelon, but more importantly the USA, would leave its mark in SMS history.
Yeah! Yes! 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 Do it! I got 118!
Capelon was the first American to put in the work to get a solid world record time. This run was truly inspiring, especially for the Americans within the SMS community.
Zach, you did it!
Dude, world record hug, dude.
World record hug! Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
This was an incredible way to start off 2015, and the competition would only get crazier from here. Another Japanese player that I've mentioned a couple of times earlier in this video, Yamata, was a top 5 player for a remarkably long time leading up to this point. Yamata is known mostly for his skill in the 120 shines category, but of course, that skill can also translate to any percent. Yamata ended up tying Cap's world record on February 7th. This is somewhat of a trend with Tobo, but the next day, Tobo took the record back by 4 seconds. Then later in the month, on February 23rd, he got a 1:18.35. Tobo was back on top, but he wasn't yet satisfied with his record. At this point, you might be wondering why even some non-Japanese runners like Capelon are using the Japanese or NCSCJ version of the game. Well, there are some minor version differences when it comes to the 80% category. NCSCJ saves roughly a third of a second every time Delfino Plaza loads, and this adds up over the course of a run. However, NCSCJ loses nearly 10 seconds on Serena Beach Episode 6 due to a much stricter goop cleaning requirement. The PAL version, which is native to most other countries outside of North America and Japan, has the fastest text speed when using Italian text. That being said, the Delfino load times on the Japanese version are still the biggest factor. At this point in Sunshine's development, NCSCJ saved roughly 12 seconds over NCSCU, and even less than that over PAL. So overall, the version differences are extremely minor, but most people still found it necessary to play on NCSCJ to save every little bit of time that they could. Capelon didn't give up, as he pushed the record down another 6 seconds on April 2nd.
Can I put this call on stream for now?
World record. We're on the record. We're on the record.
This was a solid run overall with very few notable mistakes. In a matter of less than 4 months, the record was pushed down to sub 118.30 since the first sub 119. At this point, any percent was really starting to feel like it was becoming optimized. So let's introduce Average Trey, aka me. I come from the state of Kansas, and at this point, I was 19 years old. I was known for being the 120 shines guy, having held world record in that category extensively, and running 120 shines at AGDQ 2015. However, I knew that if I put in the effort, I could potentially get a sick any percent time, and maybe even world record. Throughout the month of May 2015, I challenged myself to grind nothing except for SMS any percent until I either got a 117 or the month of May was over. Just to make things a little more special, I also decided to use Facecam and called this month the May of Trey's Face. Going into this month, I was over a minute behind Cap's world record, but I was confident in myself to improve. It's important to note that this is the point where the timing standard in the West officially changed to what we currently use today, file select timing. This method starts the timer on selecting start on the file select screen rather than soft resetting the console, and saves around 7 seconds. Japan, preferring to stick to tradition, still uses reset timing to this day, so all Japanese players' times get converted as a result. Had file select timing always been the standard, then that would have meant that Samurai Man was in fact the first person to get sub 130. Anyways, I present to you the results of the May of Trey's Face. With only a few days to spare in the month of May, I not only achieved the any percent record, but this was the first time that anyone has simultaneously held the record in the 4 main categories at the same time.
4 out of 4, US Trey.
2015 was without a doubt my strongest year in speedrunning, and it was super exciting to achieve a time that I was constantly doubting that I'd ever reach.
Dude, I Shrek'd the cat. For now. But he'll be back. Alright, he'll be back.
And oh, how right I was. Because only a couple weeks later, Caphalon improved the record to a 118.17.
I actually didn't, I thought this was, shitty chrono of all time.
Caf was on the grind for 117 at this point, since that seemed to be the peak time that SMS any percent would ever reach. On June 28th, Caphalon was on the run of his life. Things were looking good leading into Noki Bay, but in the very last episode before Corona Mountain, things took a turn for the worse. This run could have been 117, but Caphalon choked the Shadow Mario quick kill, costing him about 12 seconds. This was definitely the most depressing world record in SMS history, and something that Caphalon will probably never live down.
The shittest run ever. Thanks for watching, people.
So you may be thinking, well, yeah, that's sad and everything, but there's nothing stopping Caphalon from just grinding more attempts and finally achieving the legendary 117. Well, that would be true, except at this point, a revolutionary discovery for any percent was in the works. A majority of the group of SMS runners known as the Good People were responsible for putting the pieces together and making a certain skip and pin apart possible. Dan Salvato, famously known for his work in modding Super Smash Bros. Melee, created a practice codes hack for SMS. Using USB or SD card loading, one could load the game with these codes and use them to reload stages instantly by holding a certain combination of buttons and exiting area. These codes were extremely useful for making practice more efficient, cutting out the wait time of exiting and re-entering a level. Another feature includes position codes, which allows the player to save himself at a specific location using the left D-pad, and then using the right D-pad warp to this point from anywhere in the level. On July 12th, Sided Williams asked Clayton SMS to test something using practice codes in Pinna Park. He wanted him to position code himself in the loading zone for the Pinna 6 secret, and then in a mission other than episode 6, get an orange Yoshi outside the park and use the position code to test if the loading zone was still there. Well, it turns out that it is there. So if there was just some way to get to the Yoshi go-round inside the unloaded park section using Yoshi from the beach section, there would be potential for a major skip. It had already been known for years that you can clip into this door in the beach missions of Pinna Park. The problem is, as I mentioned previously, the park is unloaded. This staircase is surrounded by invisible walls that Mario can oddly stick to by holding the control stick towards it. And if Mario sidesteps into the wall, he zips to the bottom of the map and dies instantly. Pyroshade discovered that platforms created from spraying an enemy with Yoshi's juice could pass through these invisible walls into the unloaded park. It would have to be a platform created by a purple Yoshi, as pink platforms only raise up vertically and orange platforms are stationary. It soon dawned on Cathalon that in Pinna Park Episode 2, there are bullet bills that get shot at you in Series of 3, and these bullet bills will even shoot into the unloaded park if you're standing in this area. Cathalon then realized that by standing on horizontally moving Yoshi platforms that are able to pass through invisible walls, Mario can actually stand on the platform and be unaffected by the unloaded park. And it was at this point, people knew that this skip could actually become a